Nigerians are experiencing right now is that, take a deep dive into what this means for Nigeria generally. We have Rufai Oseni. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir.
Hi, bless you. How are you? How's it?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Barka de Salah to you. We hope that, the holidays are going well in Lagos.
Barka de Salah to you. But a lot of people are poor. They can't. It's quite hard on them. That last year they could kill because of the economic situation. We just for them. Knock off the whole.
Okay, just one moment, please. I think we're losing you there. We're just going to try to figure that out with the reception and give you a call back instantly. Please stay with us while we try to figure out the technical glitch right there. We're trying to reconnect with Rufai Oseni.
Hi.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, so can you not? So maybe you just reduce it while we talk, huh?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, good, yeah.
Okay, yes, I was asking how the Salah celebrations are in Lagos today, so far, since yesterday.
Hard on a lot of people, quite very hard. Let's not deceive ourselves. Things are tough. Some people can celebrate because, yes, they have the money, but some cannot celebrate. Increase. People that could kill ram last year can't kill anything this year because they don't just have the money. The wages have not increased, but poverty has increased. World Bank, March 2022, was saying 95 million Nigerians will be thrown into poverty. Now, that number is over 100 million Nigerians now. And this is extreme poverty. Extreme poverty. Those that can barely knock out one or two very good meals a day. And that's how bad things are. So it's been tough for a lot of people.
I mean, I can imagine. Now, let's look at this release by the report that was released by the World Bank. Can you help provide us with an overview of the recent report that was released by the World Bank?
Pretty much three things the World Bank said. A lot of people are going to get into poverty. A lot of people are going to be paid because some reforms were made. And if palliatives are not given based on those reforms, and we know those reforms, currency convergence, that's number one, subsidy removal, two, those are the reforms pretty much. As a result of those reforms, if palliatives are not given to cushion the effect of these reforms, then life will be harder for a lot of people. And we started to see it. Take, for instance, inflation is going to be on the increase. When National Bureau of Statistics release inflation numbers, definitely will go up, but already KPMG is projecting about a percentile point of about 31% increase. The price of petrol, for instance, rose astronomically from 175 to over 400, and it might still go up once marketers start to buy products themselves because of the currency fluctuation and all of that. So we might be buying for over 500, 600 naira. And then you're having all of this vis-a-vis the fact that wages not going up. And the conversation about wages, not even adequate, because if federal government increase wages of government workers, it's just going to affect 720,000 people. Okay, let's benchmark that by a family ratio of 5.3. 720,000 people times 5.3. That's how people the wages are going to affect. Nigeria is still a largely very informal economy, and those are the parameters on ground. For any decision that is made by government pretty much affects the prospects of a lot of people. So those are the challenges on ground. And the World Bank says if we don't provide the palliatives, then definitely it's going to hurt a lot of people. Most of the states, even if government increase wage now, most of the states obviously, cannot pay even the pre-existing minimum wage. I think it's only about Lagos and Edo that has been able to stretch themselves to pay up to that threshold. So there's hardship across board. But what's the way forward? Palliative. But palliative too, the World Bank too has come out to say in their report that they're quite iffy about, the shenanigans of the register and it's not really far-reaching, because if you have about 15, 20 million people on the register, that, you know, of a population of about 200 million people, then it doesn't cut it in the first place. So can we improve better food outcomes as palliative? Can we improve better health outcomes? Can we improve sort of like our Human Development Index, HDI, as palliatives to be able to cushion the effect of the problem? I think those are the things we should pretty much talk. But invariably, what the World Bank is telling us that yes, we'll be able to do those reforms, which might be good, but we're doomed in the short run if we don't do the needful and help buffer and cushion the effect on people.
Yeah, we've seen in the past several situations where the government will introduce palliatives. We all know how that has panned out. Almost nobody gets to actually benefit of the palliatives. We see that they turn out to be some kind of scheme for corruption. We have the people in authorities just taking advantage of that to steal public funds. How are we sure, or what can be done to be sure that if these palliatives are going to be giving out, they are going to actually be giving out?
I mean, that's a good concern. That's a good concern you raise, because we all know the leader to long-lasting problems of corruption. I mean, let me give you a very funny incident. You remember how the school feeding program continued during COVID when schools were shut down, and somebody will have wondered, I mean, it's during COVID, what children were you feeding in school during COVID? Well, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs tried as much as possible to defend it. You remember how even during COVID they were giving money to people by their hands, and they said, oh, they had a national register and all of that, and people have challenged all of these things. So it is not that palliative does not work, but because of the antecedent culture of corruption that pervades the air, till today, nobody has been able to audit all the money spent by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and ask how did they even spend those money. And I think for the sake of sanity in this country, they should audit that ministry, because that ministry got a lot of money in many intervention schemes, but how did they spend it? So what we should do with palliative is make it targeted. And how do we make it targeted? I'll tell you a quick story about Brazil. Brazil started something called the conditional cash transfer called Bolsa Familia. And what was Bolsa Familia doing? To target the poorest of the poor. But it was benchmarked against outcomes. So for every family that received Bolsa Familia, you could only receive it because the children were going to school and they did well in school. If they don't do well in school, you don't receive the money, because know that if your children can go to school and graduate, they can get a good job. And guess what? Many years down the line, a lot of the families that benefited, those children that Lula, the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, that provided Bolsa Familia for, and they benefited and they brought out of poverty. Guess what? Those are the children that grew up now to vote for him in the last Brazil and ensure he's re-elected. Most of them are doctors now, most of them are lawyers, and they've been able to bring their own family out of poverty because the cash transfer was targeted. But if you just say you're giving people 5,000 without any outcome, they just squander the money. And it's just tokenism once again. And that's why till date, things like trader money, you wonder what were the outcomes behind it? Were those money returned? Never. Because it was just tokenism and it was just another form of vote buying. So we need to be able to target it. And that's why I'm saying, since we don't have that pervading structure, we know corruption can eat it up. Can we spend that money on improving food outcomes, transportation palliatives, health outcomes, even if it's to make to improve our primary health care, even if it's to add into our health insurance, even if it's to bolster our scheme. I mean, when I say health insurance, I even say that advisedly, because our NHIS corruption eats the money. So when you look at it, sometimes when you talk about health insurance, you're also iffy when it's being run by government. But those things these are basic, standard of living are the things we should be to invest money in. But it's not that palliative doesn't work. It does work for big economies. We've seen countries that really benefited from it, but it's just because of the culture of corruption. So the question is, how can we effectively tailor it to bring better outcomes? So take, for instance, one program that I felt really worked for a lot of entrepreneurs was the UWIN program during President Goodluck Jonathan. It can also be a form of palliative. We can also give grants to entrepreneurs and struggling businesses and give them benchmark to be able to employ more people. That's also a form of palliative to the economy. And you can also look at targeted palliatives to the suffering poor of society. So there's so many things we can do, but we need to think.
Okay, I want to ask this question now. This is for the people. It's very easy to blame the government, to always look toward the government of the people or the government of the day. But do we have a responsibility as a people to get ourselves out of this poverty, being that out of poverty and, out of this place that we're in, being that we've seen time and time again, sometimes the government will bring up some programs and people just see it as free money to squander. We have a mindset of, for example, maybe loans. People will say government loans are not meant to be paid back. We don't even have systems to checkmate, if people are doing what they are meant to be doing with most of these things. So do you think that the people have a responsibility or a part to play to where we found ourselves now as a nation?
So do not forget that the cultural problem that the government started many years ago because of many reasons. One, they wanted to get some votes. Second, they wanted to build a support base. Thirdly, talking is a Muslim. So we didn't build that culture of accountability. And the government doesn't do any better. I mean, I'll give you a clear instance. We are telling people to bear the pain. But look at the number of cars in the convoy that followed the president. Anyway, I have to reiterate, that was not entirely the president's convoy. The president's convoy was not all of those 100 cars that were seen in the convoy. But you can see the waste of government officials that have a lot of cars going in convoys. So how about them stop all of that, for the people to be able to understand? Yes, you can do some things for yourself. You can increase your prospect and everything. But the truth is, if you've ever done business before, you will know that after God sometimes is government. And government affects the way your outcomes are. A bad policy can ruin your business forever. So even if you invest in entrepreneurship, if you have a government that doesn't understand, it can ruin everything. So most of the bulk of the responsibility will fall on government to fix it itself before the people can follow suit.
Let's go back to talking about palliatives now. If they go through, if we get if we say, okay, somehow by some miracle, nobody is going to be stealing these monies and it's actually going to be, these palliatives are going to be put in place. Do we have systems in place that can reach, that can ensure that these palliatives reach the people that need to be reached? Do we have a census of some sort where, we know that, okay, this person has been reached, the people that need it the most can be reached?
My dear, we do not have, and that's the sad reality. So simple as that. We do not have, and that's the truth. It has to be said. So I'm happy you talked about a census. Do we even know how many people are in Nigeria today?
Exactly.
We were supposed to do a census just after the elections. Did we do that census? Don't we know that census are even done for national planning? How did the government even get its database that it's using? How holistic is that database? So those are the questions. How many data points do we have? Those are the questions we should ask ourselves. So what are the solutions? I think part of also national planning means a very long-term investment in data. So over the next couple of years, we can invest in a lot of data. And at first, try to merge different data points. So you have the NIN number, you have BVN and all of that. We can holistically merge those data points, and we can use AI to be able to look at the data interplay. It will help us a great deal. But you see, like I always say, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. If we put palliatives in there, some people will still have a way to friddle out the money because there are no checks and balances enough. And to cut Nigeria some slack, it's not only this economy, we also have, even in developed economy, people stole money during COVID, but ours can be magnified because we don't have these checks and balances.
Some people would argue, or some people are of the school of thought, that the government is deliberately not wanting to have record of, the number of people that we have in the country, all of the records that we do need. We don't have data collection. It's not put in place. And some people are of the opinion that, the government is deliberately doing this because it's going to be an easier way for them to be able to get away with, taking funds that are meant for the people.
I don't think they're deliberately doing it. I just think they're simply inefficient, and it's inefficiency we've had. But we've started to change that. I mean, if you remember our long battle and how the national ID card thing became a scam. If you remember national ID scam of over 15 years ago, and then we've moved to the mean number. But we've made some progress as regards the mean number. But also, we can do more as regards keeping the data sets and using a lot of AI technology. So I think what we should do is to invest in that level of efficiency as regards the data. Because see, if we have the data, it's going to aid national planning. So I don't want to believe that school of thought that they're deliberately doing it. No, we need the data. It's going to make our lives a whole lot better. We're going to be able to plan effectively. But what we've lacked over the years is efficiency and having a pathway to making it work. So I'll give you an instance. A couple of years ago, India started a system called the ADAS, where they have the harmonized data set for almost everybody in India. It's one of the biggest data sets in the world. And guess what? They use it to plan. Almost everywhere you go in India now, you do most of your registration with the Aadhaar number. And it's been able to change the course of the economy. America, too, in the thick of the Depression, after a lot of things went south and the economy went down, and there was a lot of crime and criminality. If you remember the stories of the likes of Al Capone and John Dillinger, public enemy number one, because there was a height of criminality in the wild, wild west in America after the Depression started. The government put in some reforms. It was there they instituted things like the social security number to be able to plan for people effectively and all of that. So I think data plans effectively for people. I don't think the government's trying to stop it. They've not just been efficient all this while. I think if we bring a lot of efficiency and give it time, we can collect. At least from not having data set at all, we've had NIN number. A NIN number now has been harmonized to your passport. So if you go renew your international passport now, there's a NIN number required. So that's to show you that it's an harmonization of passports and all of that. So it's all about harmonizing data set in such a way that we can harmonize with your voters register, for instance, that you should be able to vote with your NIN number, not going through the rigor of a voter's card and things like that. So there's a lot more that can be done with the data instantly. And it's also going to provide jobs for the economy. There's so much we can do with data. It's just for us to shun the inefficiency and start thinking of the possibility of data for powering our economy.
Aren't these some of the things that this current administration should have looked into, should have put in place before, going to just take out the subsidy and implement all of these policies that are putting Nigerians into the kind of hardship that we're dealing with at the moment?
I mean, but I've constantly said it that if you fail to plan, you plan to. I said it the day the president announced subsidy gone, that he didn't plan for this. He just said it off the cuff. And guess what? The president proved me right. He said it in France when he was speaking to Nigerians, that his advisors didn't put it in the speech, and they advised him against not putting it because they were going to think about it and sort how they're going to do subsidy. But he went ahead and said he wanted to be bold enough to be able to show that he could do it. And he said subsidy gone. So let's see how his boldness without plan will lead him. Anyway, it's already truncating the economy. People are already suffering from it. So let's see how he's going to stabilize it. The Nigerian Labour Congress and government are meeting, and they are saying it will take another 8 weeks for them to be able to come out with possible palliative. Let's see how that goes with them. But very soon, people are already complaining.
I mean,
so you must be able to give them something to cushion the effect of it.
Well, now people are thinking, what kind of palliatives, if palliatives are going to be put in place, what kind should the government be, considering that could actually help cushion the effect of these policies that have been meted out?
I've answered this question before, and I said, any palliative you are giving, I don't believe in the tokenism of giving cash to a few couple of people that are leading towards you. I think what you should do is try to improve better outcomes in society, health outcomes, transportation outcomes. Look at the things that are targeted. Let your palliative be scientific. What are the greatest needs for the poor people, and how can you get across to them? That's why they are government. They should be able to do that work. They've got a team of advisors. That's why they have a budget that is worth trillions every year for government to think. There's a directorate of national planning. They should be able to think through looking at the strata of society. One, for instance, that I would tell them, when you go and check the stats and the indices from Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, you will see that for every household in Nigeria, food takes over 40% of the household income. So anything you are targeting now that is not bringing the price of food down, then you know it's not working, because most of the money, beg your pardon, most you will give Nigerians today, they will still largely go spend on food. So can you target price of food coming down? Then with that, you should be able to plot a chart for yourselves.
in the interim now, what do we think the government should, what should the government be doing right now urgently? We know that there's so much that should be done that might take a long process. What short term, what should they be focusing their energy on?
The government should be thinking on palliatives and how to do it quickly. I think the 2 months they're giving is too long, and people are already paid and people will run out of patience. So they should be thinking of how they can come up with quick solutions and target it towards the people. The pain is too much, trust me. It's not easy out there for a lot of people. It is not easy out there.
Well, we have about 2 minutes to wrap this interview up. So please, do you have any final words in closing for the people or for the government?
No, so, many things. Couple of things I'll say. Number one, I get what the government is trying to do, but the government needs to understand the economy in Nigeria. You're trying to shift from an economy that has largely been subsidy based, that has largely been socialist based, to an economy that is only capitalist. There's going to be a lot of problems. You should be careful the way you do it. Government should also remember that most capitalist nations in the world still create buffers for their citizens. And I'll tell you about America. In 1981, when America deregulated under President Reagan, pulled out subsidies pretty much for petrol. All right, the oil companies got richer and all of that. But in the preceding years, America still have to subsidize petrol because of the international reaction to price of crude oil. They always release a strategic national reserve to cushion the effect of pricing. In fact, at some point, President Biden recently actually did go to the Sauds in Saudi, the Saudi royal family, to just sort of like tell them, oh, flood the market with oil so that the price of crude oil will come down internationally, so that you will have a price buffer for my citizens in my own country. So, and the government should understand that. Secondly, the mindset that the government have of trickle-down economics is not going to work. The illusion we all have is the fact that if the rich gets richer with all these capitalist policies, then their wealth will trickle down to the poor. And we've seen, again, going back to Reagan and Madame Champagne socialist Margaret Thatcher in England, that it doesn't really work. Trickle-down economics is voodoo economics. So how do you grow the population? You need to grow from bottom to up. So all these policies that technically make the rich richer because the rich has leverage. So take, for instance, you remove subsidy. It is the rich that has money that will go and import fuel and be able to fix the price. And guess what? It is a couple of marketers, which are called the major oil marketers, that will dominate the pricing of petroleum products in the market based on what they source forex from. So it is these people that will now benefit. And if you do that thinking that, okay, I want to balance it out and have a capitalist economy, and when they get richer, they will provide more jobs to trickle down to the people, it doesn't work. So government should really be careful about that. Another thing, government should understand the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy is largely informal, and a lot of people do not understand the Nigerian economy. You think quick economic and capitalist models will just work overnight? No. You have an economy that doesn't have enterprise, that has rents. That's why you have a lot of billionaires with no factories in this country. That's why you have a lot of private jets, but less than 300 people pay 20 million naira in income tax. Yet you have a lot of billionaires in this country. There's no enterprise. It's just rent seeking. So you don't have a productive economy. And for your reforms as regards currency and dollar, you need to have economic productivity outputs. So we need to be able to develop that greatly for us to be able to buffer and get more dollars in and all of that. So the government must understand the dynamics of how the economy works and tailor these things, this restructuring or changing of the economy systematically, so that as a result of time, it can now work and pan out well. Give or take, for you to be able to, change the course of an economy takes time. It takes about 5-10 years. And you need to be systematic with doing it so that you don't enjoy the economy and stunt growth. Because at this point in time, we need growth. Vis-a-vis the fact that we have a growing population, which is a benefit, but because over the years, our government has not been able to structure the population and train the population to be effective, then we are having a very unproductive population. So we need to be able to push growth and a population growth at the same time. and buffer against headwind here and then global headwinds. So that takes a lot of balancing act to understand. And those are the things I've just said that they should understand before.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been a huge pleasure having this conversation with you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Bless.
Thank you, sir. Okay, as we conclude this eye-opening episode of Poverty's Peril, Nigerians Struggling for Survival, we are reminded of the urgency to address the plight of millions facing poverty in Nigeria. By shedding light on the underlying factors and challenges, we do hope to inspire meaningful action and sustainable solutions. Together, let us strive to uplift communities, advocate for equitable policies, and empower individuals on their journey out of poverty. Join us next week, of course, as we continue, or tomorrow, better still, as we continue on our mission to bring awareness to pressing global issues right here on World Round. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and stay committed to building a better future for every single Nigerian out there. Like I always say, if it concerns one Nigerian, it is the concern of the entire nation, because that is what we are, a nation. I'm Chinwe Blessing. Of course, Matters continues with Formula U shortly. Stay with us.